Chapter 28 Dragon's Beginning. The kiss ignited every single nerve ending in Caden's body. The taste of Valerius was like rich red wine and dark chocolate combined, sweet and salty and everything good. The next section of the podcast has been edited out to keep it suitable for a general audience. Where the moonlight had failed to pierce him, the kiss did. His bones went liquid, his body tingled, he had never felt so alive. And then it happened. Just as he was going to wrap his arms around Valerius's neck, he realized that the liquid bones thing was real. He had only a second to say, shit. He meant to say, shift, but it came out like, shit, though really both were appropriate. He scrambled backwards as fast as he could so that he didn't crush Valerius beneath him. The Black Dragon King let out a growl as he pulled back, but he quickly realized what was happening and moved swiftly himself. Somehow he squirmed out from under Caden's shifting form and was 10 feet away from Caden. Caden's head spun as he was suddenly viewing the world from quite a higher distance. His long tail swished over the ground and hit the back of the stone outcropping. He hopped away from it as slabs of stone broke off from the side and crashed to the ground. The hopping caused the ground to shake around him. Panicked, he tried to curl his tail, which he swore to goodness had a mind of its own, around his feet much like a cat would. But again he misjudged the length and power of his tail. It whipped around him and nearly took out Valerius. The Black Dragon King jumped up amazingly high into the air and just narrowly avoided being hit by the tail.
"I'm sorry, Valerius,"
Caden called, but he didn't think that the Black Dragon King heard him. Or maybe Valerius was just totally focused on his tail. Caden glared at the long, scaly tail.
"You're getting me in trouble."
But then his wings decided to get into the act. They unfurled all on their own and flapped. The strength of the wind gust blew Valerius's hair back as if he was in a tornado. They also hit the side of the damned outcropping again. More stones fell. Caden hopped again, his wings flapping, and he was rising off of the ground. Panic gripped him, and he reached towards the ground as if he could anchor himself to the earth by physical strength. Again, he had no idea his strength. His claws cut into the ground like huge spades. He ripped up huge handfuls of earth, stones, and grass. He dropped them, which caused small, or rather not small, piles to form before he dug in again. These holes were now the size of what a backhoe could dig out. Maybe several backhoes. He kept digging in, but he realized he would likely get to China before stopping himself from flying. His wings kept flapping.
"How did I land before? Oh, right. I didn't. I fell."
Caden let out a shrill laugh, except his mouth let out a burbling sound. Hearing Iolair's verbalizations had Caden realizing that he should be asking the one person who knew how to control this body to take over.
"Audiobook, help! A little help here? Take over. Really, I'm good with that."
The white dragon spirit let out a coo, and suddenly they were lowering to the ground and landing on all four of their feet, or limbs, or whatever he should call them. Immediately, Audiobook was flexing their toes in the rich earth. They were sniffing the ground, rubbing their cheeks against the grass. And at that moment, Caden realized that this was the first time that Audiobook had touched the ground and grass. "Caden! Audiobook!" Valerius called. Audiobook had their head lifting so fast that Caden almost got dizzy. The Black Dragon King was carefully picking his way over to them, avoiding the mounds of earth and the matching holes. He had his hands on his hips, but he didn't look angry or frustrated. Caden fully expected a lecture about shifting like he had, showing no control and ruining their kiss. But if that was coming, Valerius's expression did not show it. He was regarding them with a cocked head. There was almost a touch of wonder in his gaze.
"Valerius, are you okay? I don't think we hit you, did we?"
Caden frantically looked over the Black Dragon King, but he saw no injuries, not even a mark of dirt on him anywhere. He let out a sigh of relief. Audiobook sent him an image of Raziel having a whole mountain fall down on its head, and in the next moment, erupting from the rubble and soaring into the air with absolutely no problem.
I know he's really tough, but still, I don't want to hurt him. Not even a chance of hurting him.
Iolaire agreed, but simply did not want Caden to fret. Well, you are quite impressive, Valerius said, but Caden thought impressive wasn't the word he was really thinking. Raziel was impressive. Ilarion was impressive and scary, but Iolaire was elegant, delicate, for a dragon anyway, and sweet. Iolaire lifted their chin to make them seem majestic. Having seen Raziel, Caden thought they must look mini in comparison. Iolaire tossed their head in disagreement. They were a perfectly proportioned dragon. Raziel was a titanic specimen, but that didn't mean they weren't awesome too.
You're awesome. We're awesome. Why did we shift during the kissing part, though? Why couldn't we have waited?
Caden cried at Iolaire. The white dragon spirits dropped their head and cooed sadly. It sent an image of lava exploding from a mountain.
Yeah, it was pretty explosive. Now we can't even talk to him about what it means.
Caden stopped himself.
Maybe that's a good thing. If he overthinks it, he might regret it. And if I overthink it, then I might worry and...
Iolaire distracted him by eating grass and then spitting it out as it was disgusting. That had Iolaire looking even more downtrodden. It was wondering if there was anything to eat here, but no, just more grass. And they were not an herbivore. Why are you sad? Valerius asked. He stepped towards them. Everything is fine. All is well. The outcropping is just stone and dirt. It was not injured. Well, it's a little shorter now, but what of it? I brought us here so that you could get used to being in this form without worrying about breaking anything. Iolaire lowered their head so that one of their eyes could study Valerius's face up close. Valerius shocked them both when he reached out and stroked their nose. Their nostrils flared in surprise, and they reared back. Again the wings went wild, and the tail started to fly about.
What are you doing? That felt nice.
Caden cried.
His feelings will be hurt by you doing that.
Like a cat, Iolaire kneaded the ground to settle itself. Then it quickly lowered their head again, nearer to Valerius, and cooed. The Black Dragon King let out a laugh and stroked their nose once more. Iolaire closed their eyes in pleasure. What a beautiful dragon, Valerius murmured, as his hands ran along their jaw and underneath their lower lip where he scratched, which was just perfect. Their right back leg thumped on the ground.
What are we, a dog? A cat?
Caden laughed. You like that? Let's do it some more. Valerius scratched them again. More back leg thumping occurred. Iolaire opened their eyes so that he could see Valerius. Caden wanted to know what he was thinking. He was being so kind. Not at all like Caden would have thought. There was no frustration in his eyes, expression, or tone. In fact, Valerius looked rather fascinated as he studied their shimmering white scales, which really had all the colors of the rainbow in them, if they tilted them just so under the moonlight. Do you know? Valerius's voice even sounded different, though maybe that was because they were in dragon form, that I have never gotten to look at another dragon up close. Iolaire widened their eyes, reflecting both of their surprise.
Why not?
Caden asked. He wasn't sure if Valerius heard him, but the Black Dragon King answered the question nonetheless. Because it would not be safe to go up to any other dragon but you. Iolaire burbled in happiness. They were rewarded by another pat on the nose and scratch under the chin. Valerius slowly walked around them. Iolaire turned so that they could watch him. It required much neck craning, but their neck was long enough that it was easier than if they had been a human. All the way around them, Valerius ran his fingers. He even patted their rump, which had that mischievous tail going up and down, but thankfully, Iolaire could control it. You trust me to get this close to you, Valerius said almost sadly as he crossed back around to their front. Not even Esme will let me near her, nor would I let her near me. It would be thought strange to want to see another dragon so close up. They would believe I was looking for a weakness.
You don't need to see a weakness. You could stomp us. You could stomp everybody.
Valerius stroked both sides of their head, practically wrapping his arms around them. Their breath had his hair puffing up with every outward breath, which seemed to delight him. Again, not a Valerius thing to feel.
Was it the kiss that stopped him from being cranky McCranky Pants? Or is it just seeing us that's having this effect on him? Iolaire, what do you think?
The white dragon spirit just sent him an image of them flying together, wingtips nearly touching as the sun set. The sky would be multicolored with rose and red and purple and gold. Their scales would glow with inner fire.
What does that mean?
Caden thought he knew. Mate. That's what he was. Was he Valerius's mate? But that was weird. Yet that image haunted him. I have never gotten to truly see a dragon like this. Valerius continued and let out a soft huff of laughter. So I am like one of those tourists. I wish to take a picture of you. Iolaire posed, head up, wings spread, one clawed hand in the air, that had Valerius shaking his head. I bet you will be offering children rides like you are a pony. Valerius had one eyebrow suspiciously raised.
Tilly has already claimed us as her mount,
Caden said. Iolaire trilled with happiness, which had Valerius shaking his head but still smiling. Yes, you are eager to be friends with everyone. You believe they will be kind to you. You don't understand. Valerius's voice drifted off, and he looked indescribably sad. Iolaire nuzzled him, which resulted in Valerius's whole body nearly being lifted from the ground. It believed that more petting would make the Black Dragon King happy again. Valerius laughed. He laughed loud and long, and Caden wondered at how rare and wonderful that sound was. Iolaire, Caden, we must be serious right now. We must be very serious, Valerius said, and he seemed to have realized something. The other dragons are coming. You know that. Iolaire stuffed their head against Valerius's chest as if to hide. Valerius wrapped those powerful arms around their head. I know. Neither of us wants them here, Valerius muttered. Iolaire let out a soft sound of agreement.
Seriously, can't they just leave us alone?
But I do not think they will simply turn around and leave without having seen you, Valerius said, and it was more as if he was talking to himself rather than Caden. Iolaire let out a distressed sound and a snort, which once again had Valerius's long black hair puffing around his head like a halo. Valerius patted their nose again. You are so young. You are not ready for any of this, even for those things that are good.
What is he saying? The good part has to be the kissing. He's regretting the kiss. Iolaire, do something. Make him understand that he shouldn't regret it.
I have many completed gay romance series on Amazon. There's Cinders and Ashes, a gay high fantasy series loosely based on Cinderella. The Vampires Club, a fast-paced contemporary gay romance series that has vampires and takes place in a nightclub. The Bodyguard, which is a bodyguard protectee slow burn romance with a supernatural twist, and much more. Every month, I make at least 2 of these books free to download. If you want to know when that happens, the easiest way is to join my old-fashioned mailing list to get free book alerts. I'll post a link to the mailing list form in the notes.
Iolaire suddenly grasped Valerius in one hand, which had the Black Dragon King's eyes widening, before it pulled him against their chest and held him to them rather like a doll.
I'm not sure that exactly gets across what we want him to understand.
Iolaire drew a very still Black Dragon King away from their chest so they could see his expression. Valerius's eyebrows were raised. His mouth was somewhere between a smile and a frown, twitching this way and that as if he wasn't sure if this was funny or an outrage. His arms were crossed over his chest, and somehow he managed to seem regal, even though they were treating him like a Ken doll. Then Iolaire licked him, which was supposed to be like a kiss, except it wasn't exactly sexy. It also left a gobbet of dragon saliva hanging from his chin.
Oh, that looks gross. Brush that off.
Iolaire did.
Now it's in his hair. Gross. Oh, so gross.
Iolaire licked him again.
Not a good plan. What are you doing? He's now all slimy.
Down, Valerius said as he ran his forearms over his cheek. It came back wet and slimy, which had Valerius sighing. Iolaire gently placed him on the ground and patted his head, which had Caden sighing.
Head patting? Really? He's going to be so mad.
But again, Valerius was not angry. He just looked up at them with this strange expression on his face. Amusement, annoyance, sadness. And the last one really made no sense, as he shook his head. I should not have kissed you, Valerius murmured.
What? Oh, hell no. We need to shift back. Try shifting back.
But though Iolaire tried, they were stuck. Perhaps they needed another kiss to shift, or maybe they just needed to not be in emotional turmoil. Valerius let out a grin. Not because I did not want to, and I think you wanted me to. Yes, you did. You do. Iolaire nodded vigorously for both of them. And I can hardly think of doing anything else. I do not know if I will be able to see you and not think of kissing you. Valerius's expression grew distant. Raziel hid from me that mates were even possible. You do not have the same reaction to other dragons as we do.
I don't care about the other dragons. I told you that I don't want to see them. I'm staying here. This is our home.
Iolaire chirruped in agreement, which had Valerius looking up at them curiously. I wish I could hear your thoughts, but it seems that fate is not being kind. Or perhaps this is best. I will not get distracted by one of your pouting arguments, he said.
I do not pout.
Realizing that Iolaire was actually pouting, because he was internally, Caden added,
All right, I do pout. A little. Just a tad. But why do you regret us kissing? I don't. I don't know what I feel. I just know that I don't want you to regret it. Ever.
I told you once that nobility and bravery are normally not what draws a dragon spirit to a person. Do you remember? Valerius asked as he petted their right shoulder. Iolaire spread their claws in pleasure, as Valerius seemed to know exactly where to touch to make their muscles all loose and warm.
I remember. What attracts a dragon spirit then?
Valerius pressed his lips together for a moment before going on. I was in the middle of battle when it happened. I was not a noble. I was a mercenary. I fought for money, killing for coins. And I was very, very good at it.
Killing people for money?
Iolaire dipped her head down to be closer to Valerius. He did not like the sound in his voice. I am not ashamed of this, Caden. Life was cheaper back then, or so it seemed. It was brutal and short. You were either taking life or your life was being taken, Valerius said.
If you don't feel ashamed, you feel something bad, because you aren't doing that any longer. You don't want war.
I was in the thick of battle when it happened, Valerius explained. The ground had turned to mud, not just from the rain that had come that morning, but from the blood that had been spilt. The bodies were thigh-deep in places. We'd given as good as we'd gotten. My armor was battered, my helmet had broken to pieces, so I was bareheaded. Never good. Blood rained down from a cut on my forehead, nearly blinding me, so I did not see the face of my enemy until he said my name.
Who was it?
We were in the midst of blows, and he said my name, and I recognized my older brother's voice. Valerius said, his voice going strangely distant as if speaking from a long time ago. He lifts his visor, and I see him, Malvin. I hadn't seen him in a decade. He was 5 years my senior, and had taken up the sword when he was quite young. But I loved him so well. He was all I wished to be. I'd been looking for him for years, and now, there he was. Valerius, he says, and there's this huge smile on his face, and I am so glad to see him. But still numb with battle, I stare stupidly at him before finally saying his name back. I tell him that I've been searching for him. With a blade in hand, he asks, laughing though, not serious, but perhaps wandering. No, it pays for the horse I rode to look for you, I answer. And I had told myself I was still looking for him through battle after battle. But I had stopped believing I would find him. All the rest of our family was dead. Disease took them, and he claps my shoulder, and it's as loud as the sound of swords cutting through flesh and bone. We should not be speaking there. I know this. It is dangerous. But where would we go? There is nowhere to go that is not a battleground. Iolair made a soft sound of distress, as if knowing what was coming. Caden swallowed down saliva that sat bitter and uneasy in his stomach. Malvin was strong and brave and true. He was a knight, a true believer in the king he served, while I was there for coin and to kill and to kill. Why do you serve the evil king? He asked me. He pays me well, I said, and darkness crossed his face, but then he shook it off. Then I will pay you more to leave him and fight by my side. You do not need to pay me anything. You are all I need. And he was smiling at me like the sun after the long winter, and then he threw himself between me and the blade that was coming my way. Valerius whispered. He parried it successfully, and it was when he was speaking to his stunned fellow, telling him not to harm me, that one of the men on my side ran him through. Caden gasped. He felt icy inside. He fell back into my arms, blood on his lips, eyes wide with shock, and they sought out mine. He touched my cheek. He was going to say something, but then his eyes clouded and he was gone. Caden felt like his own body had been run through. Iolair hung their head. I did not want to let him go. Not into that filth, that mud, that battleground, but men were coming at me from both sides. I was a friend to none, and an enemy for both. Valerius's right hand clenched. So I made them both my enemy. Even though I had not wanted to let him go, I did. My brother's body splashed down, and I held my sword in both hands, and I started to kill. First my attackers, then anyone who was within reach of my blade. It was a dervish of death. Rage filled me. A red mist was in my eyes. I was going to die. There was no doubt that I was. I was bleeding from dozens of places. Men were swarming me. And that was when Raziel came, attracted to the blood and the death and my insanity. It came to me then and offered to join with me so that we could kill together. Valerius was silent for a moment, while Caden and Iolair hung in the balance of that silence. The Black Dragon King focused on him. Before you think that I am alone in this, I tell you that the other dragon spirits found their people in terrible times, terrible situations. Not noble, not brave, but deadly. Every dragon shifter you see comes from a history of blood.
Oh, Valerius, no. Raziel felt your pain. It knew you were hurting and needed to avenge your brother's death and your lost hope. And Valerius, you need to hear me. You need to know.
They blinked rapidly as their vision blurred with tears. Tears for Valerius that he judged himself so harshly, and for themselves for not being able to communicate. So a dragon can cry. Or you can. Valerius was stroking them again, fully focused on the here and now. You can, because you are like no other dragon on this planet.
I'm not that different, am I? But even if I am, that doesn't mean we can't try to be together. Light and dark, black and white, yin and yang. You need to see what Iolair showed me about us flying in tandem and
when the other dragons come, Caden, Valerius said, his eyes suddenly burning with fire, they will try to take you for their own. And what do you think will happen when all of us see you and want you, and all of us but you come from blood? After kissing you, I cannot let you go. after kissing you and seeing you and... Valerius rested his head against Iolea's. There will be death, Caden. That is what dragons always bring.
This audio story is free for you to listen to, but not even close to free to produce. If you want to support this podcast and enjoy the unedited chapters with the sexy parts we had to cut out for the public podcast, why not subscribe to our membership site for a month or two? You'll get to hear all the chapters we've posted so far, complete with romantic scenes you missed out on. Sign up link to the subscription site is in the notes.